Hello everyone, welcome to another Coding and Philosophy podcast.
And not just another regular episode.
Yes, this is a special episode. I have an angelic glow, as you can see.
Angelic glow.
Yes,
A halo.
exactly. And we are here. Our gracious guest invited us for food, and then afterwards he said, "Hey, you can also record a podcast here."
Yeah.
So that's why we're here.
Save you a train ride. We had all the stuff here anyway, so.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Andrew Quinn.
Yep.
And for today's episode, we were planning on discussing data. And I was telling a story how during my studies in Proakatemia, I was, and there was this event there, like a salesday event, where over all the Proakatemia students were tasked with selling these specific products. And I was shocked to find that none of the I saw it as a great opportunity to gather data, not only to do sales. Then I was shocked that there wasn't any data being collected or recorded from the interactions. No customer data, which, it kind of blew me away. So
quite surprising, yeah.
So that's why I made the statement that because I'm studying business, so I made the statement that business people don't really understand the value of raw data, let's say. The data needs to be transformed into something more usable before the business-minded people see the value of it, right?
Then, first of all, can I ask that how have you talked with your friends so that you understand why the reason of not collecting the customer data on that sales day?
Well, it was... the reasoning was, if I remember correctly, they didn't really understand the use of it. Where could it be used? I had this whole Excel sheet that I was showing, like, hey, this is the data we can collect. But then, the response was lukewarm, let's say. But now thinking back, I could have gathered different kinds of data, maybe more data that they would want to get. So should do it the other way, basically. Let's say you just ask, okay, what type of data do you wish you had about your customers? And then listen, and then find a way to gather that data. That's how you get people excited about it, I guess.
I mean, I guess that there is value in that, but people don't necessarily know what kind of data they're actually looking for at the start. So I think that I got to push back on this a little bit. I think that, gathering data, I feel like it makes sense usually to gather more data and then like pare it down over time if that's possible.
Pare it down meaning?
Well, like, you might collect a lot of data and a lot of it is just completely worthless. Like, it doesn't correlate with any sort of business outcomes or anything. But, if 99% of the data you collect is junk and then 1% actually lets you turn a bigger profit than usual, I mean, that's still usually fairly cheap to pull off. So, I don't know. I'm usually on the side of more data is better, even if it's mostly junk. So,
yeah, what's the worst sin? To not collect data or to collect bad data? I think the worst sin is not collect data.
Well, there have been an argument about that, and some of them will argue for the other options. Bad data is worse than no data at all, because worse data give a false representation of reality. Garbage in, garbage out. That's one of their arguments.
Well,
a bad representation of the world is false, but no representation of the world means that you are in an exploratory mode, and the other way around is you are under a wrong impression of the world.
When you say false data, I don't. When I say bad data, I don't mean data that misleads. I mean that data that is cannot be used, or it's hard to use it. You know.
Well, I guess there is a thing of if you have the wrong kind of data, you can create a false narrative. Around that data. I guess that is a.
But then this situation here can be that the situation in this context was that there's such too much data that is unable to refine to something of useful, then compare that to know that, oh, then what is the worsen? Yeah, then maybe we...
Do you not think that's just an issue of computational power, though?
Computational power.
Right? I mean, if you take machine learning as an example, right? It looks like, from what we've seen before, that quite a lot of problems can be solved by just throwing more CPU cycles at it, right? So maybe that's a way that you can pare down all that junk data. What do you think about that? I gotcha. I knew it.
Well, my concern is not about the computing power. It's about the algorithm we run on top of the data to process into that. What is the thing we compute on? Because we have a pile of data as a raw ingredient. It goes into this sort of black box algorithm for transformation. What is the actual transformation into that output of data into something useful?
So your problem is more the epistemology than the phenomenology in a way, right? The raw data isn't what you need.
Now you're using words. Epistemology.
Epistemology,
Yeah.
which is the science of knowledge,
Yeah,
of how
study of
we
knowledge,
know.
right?
Okay.
And phenomenology is the observation around us.
Like, it's sunny outside, right? But how do you know that? And it's like, well, you see the sun on your skin. It's like, that's a pretty good sign it's sunny outside, right? But maybe someone replaced the sun with a giant spotlight. Did you think of that? No. Would that explain it too? Yeah. So why do you think it's the sun? That's epistemology.
Okay.
And in this context,
Yeah.
epistemology is how does the data got transformed, rather than the phenomenal is the description by the data.
Yeah. We had a big conversation about this a while back, so that's why I brought it up. You're a big guy for phenomenology. I know that. So.
Back to our data story. My concern for if I am to put in the conversations between you and the people in the sales day, I can see their reason that they don't see any purpose of having those data can be valid and reasonable because a mumbo jumbo of data that we cannot do something about it.
But also, I would like to point out it's not just that there wasn't any data that was being gathered, but also the act of gathering or getting data. It's also a skill, and you learn that skill by only gathering data. So I think it's and the way
but
you.
I just actually, when we're engaging in a discussion, I actually come up with an idea. If we have data, we can answer the questions: what type of demographic, the customer persona, that is most likely to purchase from this ad hoc sales on the middle of the street.
Yeah, and I think that's the way.
That's the opportunity missed.
Exactly.
I do think there's some low-hanging fruit there for sure when it comes to this sort of thing. But I also agree with you that like data collection is a skill unto itself. That I don't know if there's really a science to it. It seems like more of an art than a science to me personally. But I've never done very much data collecting in my life.
I'm not sure what you mean by it being an art rather than a science. You mean finding creative ways to gather the data?
Yeah.
Like, for example, having a lottery?
That was a pretty good one, actually.
Yeah, so
More
basically...
like a social engineering.
It's technically a Monte Carlo method, actually.
Yeah.
How come a Monte Carlo?
Well, because a lottery... No, I was misrepresenting it in my head. For a moment, I thought when you said lottery, you meant like... We're going to pick 5 random people and write down characteristics of them. And that's
I see.
That the lottery in this
it was
context,
something different.
in this context is the incentive for people to trade their data for a possibility to win the lottery.
Yes.
Oh wait, what was the sales day about? Why does the lottery comes into play into a sales day? I thought you guys are selling something.
Yeah, but for example, if we are in a stand selling candles, if a customer doesn't want to buy the candle because of the, let's say, the heavy price,
It is a heavy price.
It was.
It was €20 for a candle.
God damn.
But it's handmade, organic, good for your skin, cruelty-free,
Cruelty-free.
vegan,
Yeah.
if it's edible.
Yeah. But so if a customer doesn't want to buy it because of the heavy price, you can just say, hey, do you want to be a part of a lottery? We're gonna select one lucky winner to have a free candle, and then all you have to do is give us your data. And so basically, because you're just trading money, you're just trading a candle to get some data, right? And then you can, you can figure out how to utilize that data. But if you think about it in a larger scale, you can use money to buy data for yourself. So
Yes.
and you can also sell data. So in the end, it's just another resource and if you have a business and you're not collecting data, you're not or not using it, then you have an untapped resource within your business.
That is an interesting way to look at it. Data as an untapped resource that basically everyone is generating at least a little bit of all the time.
My observation is actually the reverse. Business right now is collecting a stream of data that they don't know what to do with it with their current capacity. So we're trying to find people who can transform those data that they have into something that they can leverage for exponential gains.
Therein lies the rub, of course, yeah.
But if you're talking about let's say tech companies, then it's pretty straightforward to collect analytic data, or to collect website visitors, what type of website visitors
Product data, web data, customer data.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if you really think about these, let's say, non-tech companies, for example, coffee shops, or just like steel industry, for example, you still can collect a lot of data, but you just, because you're an analog business, you might not be.
You might not care that much.
Yeah,
right?
well, you
should.
Exactly.
So.
That's the thing. You can find let's say, creative ways to collect that data.
Dude, that is why Lidl is promoting their apps, because people have to log in with the app and then using that to purchase stuff.
Right.
And then when they do that, Lidl knows what particular customer with their associated data with their groceries, and then they build personal profile given that, and then they can throw out like discount campaigns to promote more people into buying more stuff.
And bring in lost people via the use of loss leaders, because everyone buys this thing at Lidl and this thing at Lidl. And then while they're there, they're like, well, I'm already grocery shopping. I might as well pick up some other stuff, right? And if you know what the big things are that draw people in, right? I mean, I've been to Lidl a couple of times, and you know what gets me in the door? Those 50-cent voi croissantit. Yeah, those croissants. Oh, man.
And then
I can't get enough of them.
And then it cascades down into this ad hoc grocery session.
Absolutely. It's happened to me way more times than I can count.
Now that you can say that, yeah, I do see that those more non-tech company, they started out as a non-data driven business, but with the advent of this industrial age, I see the trend that many of the business incorporating more and more data, customer data into the mix. And we just provide with an example of Lidl.
And I'd actually say, in my opinion, coming from, overseas, Finland is kind of a stealth leader in the category of being able to collect and sort of seamlessly use data across like a whole bunch of different businesses here. Because, like, to give you an example, you know how everything here you can log in with your banking account, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That is unbelievably good for collecting data.
That's so centralized that it scares me.
It kind of should. I feel like the crypto guys over in the States, like they're just like trying to pull off something like that. It's like, buddy, it already works here.
My theory on this is that because Finland is pretty small, a relatively small company, so it's really agile when it comes to implementing these new technologies.
Did you just say Finland is a relatively small company?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, every government is a company.
I'm for it.
So the company of Finland,
Yeah.
it's really small as opposed to Germany. I've heard from some German people that everything is in the government still done by paper.
Oh yeah. Jesus.
And because digitalizing it, there's a lot of resistance because, well, I think it's also there's some people afraid, or politicians are afraid of digitalizing data because what if some hacker gets their hands on it? But also there's a lot of, let's say, old school thinking, or the infrastructure for the government is really outdated because making it or bringing it to the modern age would require a lot of resources because of the massive amount of infrastructure. As opposed to Finland has pretty small, so it's pretty easy to digitalize things.
Yeah, I definitely say that's the part of it. I feel like even when you look at a place like Estonia, just south of us, right, you get even stronger of an effect of that. Because Estonia came onto the scene only in the 90s after the Soviet Union. They have even fewer people than us. Finland's population is about the same as Ireland's right now, about 5.5 million. Estonia's got 1 million, and half of them are in Tallinn. So, but they seem to have the same sort of effect going on, right? There's a kind of country-level agility that comes from being small enough that people can actually coordinate on these things.
Yeah, and I think with that, we come to the end of the podcast. And I would like to thank again Andrew Quinn for the nice meal and also for inviting us over here.
Yeah, no problem at all.
And a lot of insights coming from you. A lot of high-level discussion.
Yeah. And we will see you on the next episode of Coding and Philosophy. Now, remember, keep on coding.
And philosophizing.
Yeah. See you guys.